This story doesn't begin in a temple or tomb, but in the ocean. Hidden beneath waves and time are clues that challenge everything we know about human history.
My main message is that we have a so far untold backstory, that we're concentrating in.
What if the great explorers of the past weren't Magellan or Columbus, but someone who sailed the seas long before them?
I think the best evidence for it is ancient maps, which show the world as it looked during the last ice age.
Ancient maps show the world not as it looks today, but as it looked during the Ice Age. And scattered through forgotten documents and strange stone paths under the sea is a whisper of a seafaring civilization erased from our memory. This isn't just a theory, it's evidence waiting for the DNA clue from the Amazon. The Polynesian Benchmark. Genetics can uncover secrets that no history book can. In recent years, scientists have found something strange in the DNA of certain tribes deep in the Amazon rainforest, markers that match those found in populations across the Pacific, including Australia and Melanesia. This discovery is deeply confusing. According to mainstream migration theories, there should be no connection between people in the heart of South America and populations separated by entire oceans. But the genetic similarities are undeniable. That leads to a haunting question. How did those genes get there? The prevailing theory tries to explain it with land migration routes or minor coastal drifts. But it doesn't fit. The matches are too strong, and the distances are too vast. It suggests something radical, transoceanic contact thousands of years ago. What if seafarers crossed the Pacific long before recorded history? What if ships, not footpaths, carried people worldwide in the distant past? If true, this would change everything. It would tell us that ancient humans weren't just wandering tribes, they were skilled navigators. This isn't a theory born from wild imagination. It's rooted in biology. These are not stories, they are bloodlines. Every strand of DNA carries a memory, and sometimes that memory contradicts what we think we know. The implications are enormous. It challenges our maps, timelines, and ideas about who discovered whom. Yet mainstream archaeology avoids these questions, often dismissing them as flukes or coincidences. But coincidences don't map thousands of miles across ocean barriers. Coincidences don't anchor in the genetic code. Maybe it's time to stop asking how it could happen and start asking who did it first. Someone clearly did, and they left their signature not on paper, but in the very bones of our species. Boats older than history. History doesn't begin with writing. It starts with movement. Long before the first word was carved into clay, people were already moving across rivers, lakes, and seas. And to do that, they needed boats. Archaeology agrees that the ancient Egyptians had boats over 4,500 years ago.
A collection of wooden planks have been buried underground at the base of the Cheops Pyramid for over 4,500 years. They make up a solid boat that belonged to the powerful pharaoh.
These weren't simple rafts. They were sophisticated vessels, capable of carrying cargo and people. But the assumption has always been that these boats stayed close to shore, sailing safely on rivers like the Nile. But why stop there? If the technology to build seaworthy boats existed, why assume ancient people didn't use them to venture into open waters? Rivers lead to seas, and seas lead to the unknown. Curiosity is a human trait that predates civilization. The urge to explore, to see what lies beyond the horizon, was likely just as strong in the ancient world. Ancient Mesopotamians, Harappans, and even early Chinese civilizations had boats. Some had harbors, some had trade networks. But textbooks rarely suggest they ever went far beyond their coasts. The prevailing idea is that global sea travel began only in the last few thousand years. But what if it started long before that? Even stone tools on distant islands suggest that early humans crossed water barriers tens of thousands of years ago. If they could cross 100 kilometers of open sea with Stone Age tools, imagine what could be done by a forgotten culture that mastered shipbuilding and navigation. The problem isn't that we don't have evidence of ancient boats. The problem is we refuse to believe they went far. Maybe it's not the lack of technology in the past, it's the lack of imagination in the present. And maybe, just maybe, the ancient world was more connected than we dare to admit. The Ice Age map makers. Some of the most astonishing clues about ancient seafaring don't come from ruins or artifacts, but from maps. Old, crumbling maps that show things no one should know, like coastlines hidden beneath ice, or land masses that vanished long before those maps were drawn. Take the Piri Reis map, created in 1513 by a Turkish admiral. Only a fragment survives today, but it's enough to raise eyebrows. It shows the eastern coast of South America in remarkable detail. But that's not the strange part. The real shock is what appears far to the south, a landmass that resembles Antarctica. The problem? Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820, and in 1513, no explorer had even come close. Piri Reis wrote a note on his map saying he based it on older source maps, over 100 of them, some rescued from the Library of Alexandria. That ancient knowledge, passed down through copies, may have preserved details from when ice swallowed parts of the world. And it's not just one map. The Orontius Phineus map from 1531 also shows Antarctica, which is ice-free and has rivers and mountains. These maps shouldn't exist, at least not with that level of accuracy. They suggest that someone, somewhere, had already mapped these regions. And they didn't do it from a satellite or an aeroplane. They did it from ships, sailing across oceans, observing, and measuring coastlines. This raises a difficult question. Where are the originals if these maps are based on even older ones? Who made them, and when? The answer may lie not in what we've found, but in what we've forgotten. Perhaps long before our civilizations rose, another fell, leaving behind only fragments. And some of those fragments survived on parchment. The longitude problem. If you want to cross an ocean and know exactly where you are, you need to solve a puzzle, such as longitude. Determining latitude is easy. You just measure the angle of the sun or stars above the horizon. But longitude is a different beast. You must know what time it is at your starting point and compare it to your local noon. That requires an accurate clock and a chronometer. The trouble is, such clocks didn't exist until the 18th century. Until then, even the best sailors had to guess their east-west position, and that guesswork led to countless shipwrecks. Yet somehow ancient maps appear to contain precise longitudinal data. That's more than strange. It's impossible under the accepted timeline. The Orontius Phineus map and similar maps show continents placed with surprising accuracy, not just north to south, but east to west. This accuracy suggests that whoever made the original maps had solved the longitude problem. But if modern civilization didn't do that until the late 1700s, who did it earlier? Could an ancient civilization have cracked it? Perhaps not with mechanical clocks, but with celestial methods, watching the sky so carefully that time and place merged into a navigation system. Maybe they used water clocks, star charts, or something else we've forgotten entirely. What matters is that the evidence is there. These maps don't lie, and they weren't accidents. They reflect knowledge, calculated, recorded, and preserved over centuries. If ancient people could accurately determine longitude, they were far more advanced than we assume. That single ability would have opened up the entire world to them. Oceans wouldn't be barriers, they'd be highways. And in that light, the maps become more than curiosities. They become echoes of a mastery we thought only modern humans possessed. Now first, like always, be sure to hit the like button down below. It helps us out tremendously with the reach of this video. Thank you. The mystery of Antarctica. Let's talk about Antarctica, not the frozen desert we know today, but the land beneath. Modern science tells us that this icy continent wasn't always buried under miles of snow. In fact, during the last ice age, large portions of Antarctica were ice-free. Some coastlines were visible, some rivers flowed. So how do we explain ancient maps showing this Antarctic version? The Orontius Phineus map, drawn in 1531, includes Antarctica in stunning detail, complete with mountains, valleys, and rivers. But in 1531, no European had ever seen the continent. And more than that, the ice-covered version we know didn't appear on maps until after its official discovery in 1820. The Antarctic coastline shown in these old maps matches modern seismic surveys. In other words, they reflect what lies underneath the ice. Our civilization didn't have that knowledge until the 20th century, yet somehow someone mapped it hundreds, maybe thousands of years ago. How? This suggests an ancient culture had both the means and the will to explore the southern oceans. They mapped Antarctica before it froze, which puts their activity back over 10,000 years to the Ice Age. It's a staggering idea. If true, it means we're not the first global explorers. Someone before us knew the planet better than we did, even with satellites. Mainstream archaeology argues this is a coincidence or misinterpretation, but coincidences don't map invisible coastlines, and they don't consistently appear across unrelated maps from different centuries. These anomalies demand answers, and every answer leads us further from what we thought we knew. Maybe the real mystery of Antarctica isn't what's under the ice. It's who saw it before the snow came and why their story was buried with it. The Grand Bahama Banks anomaly. Off the coast of Florida lies an underwater region called the Grand Bahama Banks. Today, it's submerged, but once, it may have been an island marked on ancient maps with features that raise even more questions. On the 1513 Peary Race map, there's a large island in the exact location of the Grand Bahama Banks. Running down its center is a line of megaliths, massive stones that appear like a road or structure. Modern divers know this formation by another name, the Bimini Road. The Bimini Road is a path-like arrangement of flat stones underwater. Some believe it's natural, while others insist it's man-made. Either way, the structure is fascinating. But the real mystery isn't whether it was built by humans. The real mystery is that it was shown above water on a map drawn 500 years ago. If that land was above sea level, it would mean sea levels were much lower, which hasn't been true for thousands of years. The last time the Bimini Road could have been exposed was during the Ice Age. So, how did that feature end up on a 16th century map? Once again, the answer lies in the source material. The Peary Race map was based on older charts, much older. Those source maps, now lost, were likely copied from even earlier maps drawn when parts of today's seabed were dry land. This one map quietly proves a bold idea, that someone, thousands of years ago, mapped coastlines that no longer exist. And their work, passed down and recopied, survived just long enough for us to find it. We don't need to prove who made the Bimini Road. We only need to ask, who mapped it while it was still dry? What the maps don't show. Sometimes what a map leaves out says more than what it includes. The Pinkerton World Map, created in 1818, is a perfect example. It shows the known world with remarkable detail, except for one massive omission: Antarctica. It's not there at all, and that makes sense. In 1818, no one had discovered Antarctica yet. Now compare that to the Orontius Phineas map from 1531. That older map clearly shows Antarctica, not just as an icy outline, but as a continent with rivers and mountains, long before it was officially found in 1820. Based on modern seismic scans, the version shown matches what we now know lies beneath Antarctica's ice. This isn't a lucky guess. It points to lost knowledge. The Phineas map was likely based on even older charts, made by people who had seen that land before it was covered in ice. So when modern maps omitted Antarctica, it wasn't a mistake. It was a sign that we'd forgotten something. Somewhere along the way, humanity lost a piece of its past. In the blank space on that map, we can almost feel the silence, which is where memory used to be. The sunken world of the Ice Age. During the last Ice Age, sea levels were 400 feet lower than today. Vast areas now under the ocean were once dry land. The islands we see today were once connected. Australia and New Guinea were one landmass. The Indonesian archipelago wasn't scattered. It was a single stretch of land. Ancient maps seem to reflect this forgotten geography. They show coastlines that don't match our current world, but they make sense when viewed through Ice Age sea levels. These aren't artistic errors, but accurate depictions of a world long submerged. This raises big questions. Who drew these maps? Who lived in that sunken world? And why did their knowledge vanish? If an ancient civilization lived and traveled during that time, its cities would now be underwater. That means our archaeology, the ruins we dig up, may only be part of the story. The rest is hidden beneath the sea. When we look at ancient maps, we may not be seeing predictions. We're seeing memories from a time when the Earth looked very different. The real archive of human history might lie not in the deserts or mountains, but beneath the waves, waiting to be rediscovered. The forgotten astronomers. Before telescopes and satellites, ancient people looked to the stars with nothing but their eyes, and they understood more than we give them credit for. To sail across oceans without getting lost, you needed more than courage. You required knowledge of the skies. Many ancient cultures had it. They tracked constellations, measured time by star cycles, and navigated with precision. The Polynesians did this, so did the Mayans and Babylonians. But what if there was a much older civilization, one even more advanced in sky-based navigation? Some ancient maps show coastlines with accuracy that requires deep astronomical understanding. This is especially true for longitude, a challenge even modern civilization couldn't solve until the 18th century. These maps suggest someone cracked that code long before clocks were invented, not with machines but by mastering the rhythms of the heavens. They didn't need computers. They needed patience, observation, and generations of knowledge passed down. Maybe they built stone observatories or memorized star paths. Whatever they did, it worked. Then, one day, it was forgotten. Was it flood, war, or time that erased it? No one knows. But their maps remain, silent proof that someone once knew the world, guided not by technology, but by the stars. History isn't just what we find, it's also what we remember. And sometimes, what we forget. These maps, coastlines, and lost islands aren't just drawings on paper. They are questions. Sharp, persistent questions that won't go away. Who mapped the world when it looked so different? Who sailed oceans when others were still walking deserts? Maybe the story of civilization doesn't rise in a straight line. Perhaps it rises, falls, and rises again. The past may be deeper than we thought, and it may be time to dive in.